Welcome to MedTech Smarts with Rita, the podcast that gives MedTech startups and medical device leaders the insights and clarity they need to build strong, scalable, and compliant companies. I'm Anna Crook, and I'm joined today by Rita King and Evangelia Evdaimon from MethodSense. Rita is the CEO of MethodSense and founder of LuminLogic. She brings more than 35 years of global experience across regulatory strategy, quality systems, submissions, audits, and product development. Rita is also a former regulator, professional auditor, and one of the early contributors to safety-critical software standards used across regulated industries. Over the past 26 years, she has helped medical device companies navigate complex regulatory and commercialization challenges while building systems designed to support long-term operational success. Joining her is Evangelia Evdaimon, Vice President of Quality at MethodSense. Evangelia has more than 25 years of experience helping medical device companies build, implement, defend, and improve quality regulatory systems across FDA and international regulatory environments. Her work focuses heavily on operational execution, inspection readiness, lifecycle quality integration, and helping companies translate regulatory expectations into systems that function effectively in practice. In our last episode, we discussed why FDA introduced QMSR and the broader shift toward proactive, integrated quality systems. Today, we're taking the next step in that conversation by addressing one of the biggest misconceptions in the industry. If FDA aligned with ISO 13485, does that mean companies that are ISO certified are automatically FDA-ready? Or does QMSR actually require something more? Today's conversation is about understanding the difference between compliance and readiness. So Rita, why are so many companies assuming that ISO 13485 and QMSR are essentially the same thing?
Well, because at a structural level, there is real alignment. FDA replaced most of the previous quality system regulation language with references to ISO 13485. So naturally, many companies hear and conclude we already have ISO 13485 certification, so we must be already aligned. Mm-hmm. However, this conclusion oversimplifies what really happens. So QMSR reflects an alignment with ISO 13485 with a continued FDA regulatory framework, but that does not mean that FDA has replaced all its expectations with ISO 13485. And we will explain more today as we get into the details. So FDA regulations around regulatory obligations for the U.S. market, around inspections and operational readiness still remain. They've been refined, and again, we hopefully get into some more detail for the audience. But for example, companies may have procedures that technically align with ISO 13485. But FDA, again, expects organizations to demonstrate how their complaints, their risk decisions, post-market information, and leadership actions are actually connected and functioning together in practice. So with this change, FDA continues to expect companies to demonstrate how their decisions are made across the lifecycle. And this time, it's even more obvious, and we see this with the audits that they are performing, how FDA has changed the way that they perform their audits to help companies understand the expectations of QMSR. So they're not just looking that procedures exist, but they are looking again at the overall life cycle, which has similarities with ISO 13485, but a true opportunity, which we will continue to explore today.
Evangelia, is this where the distinction between compliance and readiness starts becoming important?
Absolutely. A company may have compliant procedures, but still struggle to effectively implement them and demonstrate practical conformity during inspections. ISO 13485 gives companies an important quality framework. It defines many of the structures and processes companies should have in place. But QMSR readiness is not measured by how many SOPs you have. It's measured by whether your organization can clearly tell the story of its decisions consistently, objectively, and with evidence. Basically, readiness is demonstrated through execution. Teams should be able to trace decisions clearly. Complaints need to be connected back to risk evaluations. Leadership, just like Rita said, need to explain why actions were or were not taken. Post-market information need to be tied back into design or manufacturing decisions. This is where inspections become very revealing.
And in reality, many organizations have all the procedures that they really need. So the challenge now, and what QMSR is exposing, is not just the existence of procedures, but how effectively those procedures are implemented, how are they connected, and how they're used across all people that they're involved in the company, actually the overall ecosystem. Organizations actually struggle because their systems, internal and external teams, because companies are virtual now, and the information that's being generated or received, it's not always well connected. So at the same time, as we discussed even the last time, it's important to recognize that everyone is operating under pressure. And when pressures increase, people naturally retreat into their own functions. So the engineering department focuses on engineering, quality focuses more within their quality procedures and functions, regulatory with regulatory decisions, manufacturing, leadership, and so on. But the product life cycle does not really operate in isolated departments. And this is what I truly believe is the major concept that FDA is trying to reinforce through QMSR. Again, we don't read it exactly in the regulation, but we see it in the FDA actions. And that's why we're discussing the concept the way that we are together. So the reality is that integration is much easier to discuss conceptually than it is really to implement operationally. So I can always say everybody needs to be connected, but how does this happen? So it's easy to assign rules, responsibilities with individual functions, but it's not as easy to try to figure out how to create cross-functional dependency and collaboration. So many organizations begin viewing cross-functional dependency as something that in reality slows development timelines, delays their submission timeline, complicates the commercialization goals and timelines. So the QMSR is trying to reinforce the need for organizations to stop, think about their quality management system, figure out how could they operate more cohesively across their life cycle, even where they're under pressure, because again, disconnected decisions eventually create larger operational and regulatory challenges at some later point.
So Evangelia, where do companies still need to pay attention specifically to FDA expectations?
There are several major areas where the federal regulations from the FDA actually are different from ISO 13485. Complaint handling and medical device reporting requirements are very specific under FDA regulations. Companies must evaluate every complaint for reportability and must document MDR decision-making even when not reportable. Another area is labeling expectations. FDA has very specific label contents requirements, as well as UDI and Good ID database registration requirements. Certain record keeping and traceability requirements is another area of difference, while record terminology around DHF, DMR, DHR is becoming more flexible and transitions to medical device file. The FDA still expects to see equivalent records in companies' technical and manufacturing documentation. FDA still expects conformity to additional federal law requirements such as registration and listing, corrections and removals, as well as, of course, the pre-market submissions. So ISO 1345 alone does not fully define those requirements because those are tied to U.S. federal law. Companies still need to understand how quality system activities connect to these regulatory obligations.
And of course, this becomes even more important as we're trying to utilize our QMSs globally, because then the ecosystem becomes more complex. Medical devices, as we've been discussing, are no longer operating with a single team, a single supplier, one regulatory framework, because as we bring in ISO 13485, we may be talking about a company that is going to Europe or other countries, along with also complying with FDA regulations. So there are multiple partners in evolving technologies, regulatory expectations across markets that do not always align perfectly with one another. So one of the biggest operational challenges is integrating quality and regulatory strategy in a way that functions cohesively across all those moving parts. While most organizations understand this conceptually, understand that design decisions, labeling decisions, risk decisions, complaint evaluations, manufacturing controls, submissions, and post-market activities all influence one another, the real challenge is making sure that these connections happen consistently in a day-to-day operations and are understood by everyone affected. Otherwise, companies end up making strong decisions within individual departments, but later they create unexpected challenges somewhere else in the life cycle. A small change, for example, let's say replacing a term in your device description, could create unintended conflicts later on within your submission if the broader team did not have an opportunity to fully align on the impact of that change. So it's important, again, to really understand that the broader concept that is reinforced by QMSR can really help companies operate more effectively within this larger global ecosystem while still addressing the specific expectations of each of the markets they operate in. So this is where really readiness becomes more different than compliance. So readiness begins with understanding what QMSR is trying to reinforce, all the way from the details that Evangelia is trying to bring forward to the greater concept that I'm also trying to help the teams understand. And then depending on how effectively organizations connect this information, how they align their teams and defend decisions across their entire product lifecycle is where, again, they will become more effective and more successful.
So something I noticed is that you both brought up pressure. So why does pressure matter so much in these systems?
Because quality management systems and the procedures within them almost always look cleaner on paper than they do in reality. So medical device companies operate under constant pressure. It's a concept that I bring forward every time I communicate, either in topics like that or even with individual companies. The reality is timelines are tied to submissions. Funding is tied to milestones. Commercialization goals are very critical. Resource limitations are real, they exist. We never have enough resources. Clinical evidence expectations can create more significant challenges. How many patients we need for the clinical study? Do we understand the milestones or the endpoints clearly? Would the FDA agree with them or other regulators? Can we use them from market to market, the same study, let's say? Submission deadlines can directly impact the future of the company. So this is real. And the reality is that the chicken and the egg challenge in medical device commercialization is very real as well, and so is Murphy's Law. So under pressure, organizations can naturally shift into a reactive behavior, begin simplifying decisions or narrowing focus to address immediate pressures. So not because they're trying to do the wrong thing or intentionally avoid following their internal procedures or do not like their quality manager. That's not the case. It's because teams are often doing the best they can within the limited time, resources, and the competing priorities that they are dealing with. And when there is not enough time to fully understand the purpose behind a procedure, a regulation, or a decision, then information naturally becomes fragmented. Teams become disconnected, and it becomes difficult to maintain visibility across the organization. I truly believe that FDA is very well aware of these challenges. And they do hope with this big change that they're trying to bring forward with QMSR that the industry takes it seriously and uses it not just as an update on existing procedures and checklists, but they actually use it as an opportunity to build stronger and more connected organizations. So that's why I believe quality and regulatory readiness is ultimately an operational challenge, not simply a documentation issue or a checklist update. And again, not just updating a few affected procedures, such as Evangelia talks about, risk management or complaint handling.
And inspections expose such challenges and weaknesses very quickly. FDA is not simply asking, do you have this procedure? FDA looks at how you're implementing the procedure. They're looking at how you make the decisions, what information support your decisions, who was involved, how risks were evaluated, and how risks were mitigated to ensure safety. So these questions provide visibility and confidence to the regulators. For that level of visibility to work, companies need to have connected systems and connected thinking.
AI is becoming part of almost every conversation in MedTech right now. So how does AI fit into all of this?
I do believe that AI is going to accelerate both the opportunities and also the risks within the medical device industry. For example, if a company is using an eQMS with integrated AI capabilities, differences between QMSR and ISO 13485 can potentially be identified much faster, allowing the quality manager to evaluate whether procedures, controls, or team communications need to be updated. But AI can also help companies analyze trends, organize information, generate documentation, summarize complex information, and support more efficient decision making. But the important question that we have to be asking now, because AI is still in its infancy in reality, is what experience and intelligence is that AI actually built on? And I believe this is one of the biggest challenges the industry faces today and will continue to face for some time. We saw that actually in action with medical devices. We've been operating under this AI environment for over 14 years here at MethodSense. So we saw how long it has been taken both for the FDA as well as for companies to recognize the maturity of their AI within medical devices. Now we have AI for efficiency. So genetic AI can generate output very quickly, but regulated industries require interpreted context that can be trusted, along with the traceability, the judgment, and defensive decision making. So the future is not simply AI generated content or just an eQMS with AI. The future is utilizing AI that's grounded in real world regulatory and quality experience.
And to Rita's point, AI is only as effective as the information fed in it. If systems are disconnected, teams work in silos, or information is incomplete, then AI outputs will reflect those same gaps. But when systems are connected properly, AI can also help organizations identify trends earlier, improve visibility, support consistency, and strengthen operational decision making.
Rita, how should companies approach this transition?
Okay. I would suggest that companies evaluating their quality management system for QMSR, ISO 13485, or both, move beyond thinking only in terms of what procedures do I need to update to remain compliant or achieve certification. Again, I believe that we should look at the bigger opportunity. And really, the more important question should be, can our organization operate effectively under real-world conditions across the entire product lifecycle? And do we truly understand what FDA is asking us to do? And how can we implement a more effective QMS this time? Actually, at MethodSense, we spent actually the last 26 years helping medical device companies build and operate quality systems, regulatory strategies, and submissions under the real world conditions. So we experience the pressures we've been discussing today every single day. And we do believe that regulatory changes should also be viewed as opportunities to create greater efficiency and better and safer products, which at the end creates more confident and better aligned teams. So that experience has actually shaped us on how we developed LuminLogic, which is our eQMS and regulatory compliance platform that we have brought to the industry for many years now. But it's designed to help companies connect quality, regulatory, and operational decisions in a more practical and intelligent way across the product lifecycle. And we want a product like ours, like LuminLogic, to become the trusted regulatory intelligence and execution platform for medical device companies.
Yeah, LuminLogic brings stakeholders together in one connected system. So quality, regulatory, engineering, manufacturing, leadership, and all post-market activities are no longer operated in isolation. That supports better visibility, stronger alignment, and more informed decisions across the organization.
And as we were discussing about AI and the challenges, the intelligence that we have put inside LuminLogic is actually grounded in real-world regulatory and quality engagements. So it can be helpful and it can be trusted. So within this AI capabilities, we want to generate customized, and we're able to generate customized eQMS structures aligned with both QMSR and ISO 13485 within hours of implementations. So at the same time, though, we want to help teams analyze trends, surface insights, and support more connected and informed decision making so we can make the whole concept of being a better company a reality.
Ultimately, QMSR reflects alignment with ISO 13485 within a continued FDA regulatory framework. But alignment does not automatically mean readiness. FDA aligned QMSR with ISO 13485, but FDA expectations around regulatory obligations, inspections, and operational readiness still remain. Readiness is reflected in how organizations operate under real-world conditions, how decisions are made, how information is connected, how risks are evaluated, and how teams function together across the lifecycle. At MethodSense, we created a practical companion checklist for this episode called QMSR and ISO 13485, Alignment, Gaps, and Readiness. This checklist will help you evaluate where ISO 13485 provides strong structural alignment, where FDA-specific expectations still apply, and where operational integration becomes critical. You can download this checklist by using the link in our show notes. Thanks for joining us today on MedTech Smarts with Rita.